There was a picture the other day and a caption that read something like, "Smart child runs away from the queen." And then they show a picture of Prince Charles with his ancestor, Count Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. And you suddenly get the picture that they're trying to infer that these people of the royal bloodlines are descendants of a different species. And if you go back with the vampire lines, you will start to see that they may have been from the Nephilim. Now, I know this is a subject that most people try to shrug off, and they're like, oh, whatever, you guys are out of your minds. But even in Genesis, the Bible talks about the men that came down from the heavens that slept with the women of earth and produced a seed. Okay? Now, this concept of giants on earth really has never been brought to light in a public fashion where we all kind of agree, like, okay, maybe there's some truth to this. But it certainly has been very pervasive in literature. Okay, dating back to the Odyssey, you have the hero of the story talk about going to different islands and seeing giant men that wanted to eat the sailors. Okay, so there's this theme of cannibalism also that you find in these tales. And then, of course, going to the book of Enoch, they tell you that the giants also fed off human blood. And once you begin to study these ancient scriptures, you come into an agreement now that, yes, these deities, these energies, these gods, these giants, the Nephilim, the royal bloodlines, whatever you want to call them, they have a propensity for human blood. Now, why they eat off of you, why do they want your energy, why do they need your flesh is a whole topic for another day. Okay, and we're eventually going to go through the RH bloodline, the negative factor, what it means. But what I thought was interesting is that all across the world, there are archaeologists that swear that they have dug up or excavated bones, and they show pictures. Hey, I can only report what I've seen. I have not personally visited these sites, but lots of people around the world take pictures and they say, hey, look at this giant head. Look at this giant foot. Look at this giant doorway. And we're all just like, do. So it struck me as so funny that there's a whole cartoon, like Mickey did it, right? And there's certainly a fairy tale about it. But there's a movie, also about Jack and the Beanstalk, where in the fairy tale, Jack is a regular human boy living with his mother. And he goes out to try to find food because their cow stopped giving milk, okay? And on the way, he meets some magical person. Now, in some versions, it's a woman. Some version is a man. But either way, it's implied that he's being tricked. Almost like a little Eshu energy there. So he gets some magical beans in exchange for his cow, which is crazy because why didn't they just kill the cow? They must have been vegans. So he brings the beans home and he tells his mom, and she's like, where's the, you sold the cow, where's the money or whatever? It's food, what'd you get? He said, I got some magical beans, Mom. And his mother was like, boy, what the heck? And she was so mad. And in some versions, she throws the beans out. Some versions, he throws the beans out. Either way, the beans get thrown out the window and they become planted into the earth. And the next day, there's this huge beanstalk that develops that reaches up into the heavens. So right there, we know that the bean is the incubator to doorways, dimensions, okay? The bean resembles the womb then, right? Okay, because once it's planted into the earth, it brings forth the life. So it's very interesting concept there that they use the bean in this story. But I mean, to me, whenever I see a round shape of anything, that's the womb to me. That's the mother energy. That's just me though. So now he plants it, and we have the phallic symbol. And this is now going to reach up into the heaven, into this other dimension. And in the movie, I believe they make reference to the fact that the movie is a gateway, and that in between these two worlds, between the heaven and the earth, is another world where there lies peril, okay, for man. So he goes up into the heavens now, at least the second heaven anyway, and he encounters giants. So he encounters beings that are huge, larger than him. And it's so funny, like when you look at the depiction of the pharaohs sitting on the thrones and the servants, we always see the servants smaller in stature. And I think to the common mind, you probably just think, oh, that's just to delineate the fact that the pharaohs are in a superiority position. But really, it is illustrating that the pharaoh's line perhaps were descendants, some of them, from the Nephilim, and that's why they were bigger. It's very fascinating when your mind starts to think outside of groupthink, right? So Jack goes up there, and when the giant sees him, he's like, fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an English man. So I thought that was interesting that this story is set in England, where a lot of this activity takes place anyway. And so when the giant says that, he's smelling the blood, and he knows it's time to eat. They're cannibals. They feed off of us. And that's why everything is designed to keep us down and to keep us at a certain vibration, because they love to get high off of fear and frenzy. Okay? So in some of the versions of the story, Jack gets away because the giant's wife helps him, okay? And in other versions of the story, he escapes just by his own wit, and he finds different magical items there. Some versions says he goes back and forth up the beanstalk before finally he has to chop the beanstalk off at the root and escapes the giant that way. Now, what's interesting to me is that when the giant says, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, that told me that means he had to have smelled it before. So either giants had come down to earth, or other humans had gone up to earth. And now you begin to get a little picture of some type of pathway or passageway to the stars, or maybe a UFO. And that the giant stalk is really a UFO that's beaming up people, and that's why you have that phallic symbol. So when you read like the book of Enoch and other different writings like that, when they talk about the Nephilim or the giants on the earth, they always come from the position that they don't like us, and us meaning all humans. And I know y'all love to have race wars, but when the giants come to eat, they're not separating y'all by black or white or Chinese, okay? They're separating y'all by humans. That's it. And so the giants, some people say that they just don't like us, but I don't think it's like that. I really don't think they're so caught up in a human emotion. It seems very, third dimension. I just think that the story of our DNA being manipulated, and that we were then created and bred to be servants, to be food, to be cattle, to be chattel. I think that story is probably more in line with why the Nephilim like to feed on us, okay? And people say that, we were to be mining gold, and that's why they came here. Now, the story gets a little murky with these giants, because even though all of the accounts talk about them coming down here from another dimension, some people actually say the fact that the vampires exist are because of this tainted bloodline between the Nephilim and the women of earth, right? And so then the vampire, as you know, they call them Draco, and that's nothing more than a dragon, and a dragon is nothing more than a serpent. And when you get to the serpent line, you got to encounter at some point the Dogon people in Mali and their worship of Sirius B, where they talk about the Nomu and how they came from the earth, from the earth's water as amphibians. And as we know, water is a gateway, it's another dimension, and water is nothing but sky. It's nothing but sky. So, I mean, I get enthralled with the stories. I love to just spend my time reading and watching different videos to get different perspective. But I always like to think that when you read these things, you have to have an open mind and look beyond what they're physically saying, because some of this is allegory, okay? It's not going to be literal. So he really didn't plant a literal bean and climb the stalk. Stalks are usually like DNA related, or they relate to passageways, or they relate to journeys, okay? Or like I said, it's a phallic symbol. So that also tells us that things are moving, swimming, water, okay, passageways. So I just wanted to give y'all my version of Jack and the Beanstalk and just kind of introduce the subject of the Nephilim. And we're going to eventually now go into the Rh negative blood factor. And what is their agenda here on earth? And why doesn't anyone save us? And what are we supposed to be learning from these encounters? Now, y'all tell me, have you ever encountered someone that you thought could be in that bloodline? You know, some people say that that's why certain of the witches, they have red hair, because the giants had red hair. And that is like a throwback or carryover from that line. And that's why most of the true born blood witches always had red hair. They also say that people that have Rh negative blood types are in the bloodline of the Nephilim. So, makes it a fascinating study for sure. I'm never going to learn enough about this. And like I said, I spent a lot of time just reading and thinking and talking and, you know, chewing over the different notions that I'm getting as I start to uncover. And some of this writing is so heavy because they write in metaphors so much. You kind of have to sift through the metaphors to understand what they're really telling us. You know, and it's just like the same story about Jacob's ladder. You can look at Jacob's ladder as the same thing. There was some type of pathway involved, right? So some kind of information was being transmitted. So some people say, yeah, the angels, you know, were going back and forth. But some people say this is merely your brain stem getting information from your higher consciousness. So again, it kind of just depends on your outlook and how you view things. But I hope you join me for this next topic series that I'm going to be introducing. Comment below. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. If you've had any encounters or if you have your own theories, talk to me good. Talk to me nicely, okay? And as always, Om Shrim Brezi.